Live from New York, this is the Harvey Hour. My name is Nathan Harvey. It is great to have you in on a Friday. As always, I'm joined alongside my dad, Stephen Harvey. How are you doing today on this Friday?
I'm always happy on a Friday.
Yeah, it's going to be good. End of the work week, getting into the weekend. We got some NBA action tonight, which we'll talk about. We're making our first round predictions, even talking about the games tonight as well, making the predictions on who wins between the Bulls and the Heat, as well as the Kings and the Pelicans. So stay tuned for that. But we have a good show all around. Let's start with some NFL news because a lot of things have been surrounding future Hall of Fame coach Bill Belichick when it comes to the fact that he is without a job this year, and it looks like that's going to be the case. But next year, it actually does look bright because, according to sources close to him, also by ESPN's Seth Wickersham, Jeremy Fowler, and Don Van Natta Jr., sources close to Belichick, have revealed that he would be willing to coach just 3 teams in the NFL: the Dallas Cowboys, the Philadelphia Eagles, and the New York Giants. And out of all 3 of those teams, he is more inclined towards getting a shot to coach America's team, the Dallas Cowboys. Only NFC East teams, which is quite interesting. Now, we saw, this offseason that it looked like he was about to get the Atlanta Falcons job, interviewed twice with them, and according to sources close to him, he thought he did everything right. Said he didn't want the power. He was willing to work with the GM, work with the staff, and the Falcons decided to go forward with Raheem Morris, who was their interim head coach a couple years ago. So Belichick is without a job for at least this season, but according to people around him, he looks like he's willing to coach at age, 72, 73 years old in 2025. I want to know what's the likelihood that Belichick actually does get a shot at coaching once again in his lifetime?
Well, first let's talk about why he didn't get a chance to coach this year. There's word out there that Robert Kraft dissed him to Arthur Blank. They had a couple of conversations. Belichick, confidant and close friend of Kraft, kind of confirmed it that don't trust Bill. You can't trust him. He's difficult, obstinate, stubborn, not worthy of his trust, very, very arrogant. Says that Kraft said he never had a warm conversation with Bill in reference to his blunt and gruff demeanor. Well, that's pretty negative. I feel sorry for Belichick in this offseason. My God, the dynasty, they tarred him. That made him look like he was very negative, and the main reason that Brady left. And now Kraft, the word is out there that he dished him to Arthur Blank, and being confirmed by several sources, although Patriots spokespeople are saying that's not true. But I don't know. They may be just in damage control. So Blank had 2 lengthy conversations with Belichick, and the crossroads was whether giving him power, operations personnel, and coaching was the right way to go. Was you're saying that Belichick really was happy just to be the coach and was willing to share the power, and that the Falcons leadership said that he wasn't even in the top 3 of the 2 they would pick, but they didn't want him there because he's the greatest coach of all time, and he wants to run things the way his way, and they would be felt like they would be, less needed, and their jobs would be negatively affected by it. So what'd you expect them to say? So I feel bad for Belichick. I'm not sure whether it's true that Kraft said these negative things. Maybe so. I mean, their relationship obviously soured the past few years. It just proves in the NFL it's all about winning. If you win, all these things are taken care of. If you lose, they aren't, and they fester, and this is what happens.
Well, I think if the report is true that Robert Kraft, sort of went behind his back and said those things, then you know what? Maybe Kraft is a little bit salty about what? I'm not entirely sure. Does it feel slighted still, like we found out in the dynasty? Does he still feel screwed over? I'm not entirely sure. Do I think he is still upset over the fact that Belichick and Brady did not work out their differences, and that soured a relationship so much so Brady said he would never play for Bill Belichick, even if he played till 50, he was never going to re-sign as long as Belichick was the head coach. Yeah, I think he still takes massive issue to that. But I will say is that it is weird how Belichick and Julian Edelman's coming out and say this. Gronk is still shocked by this. Brady's even come out and said it, how he doesn't have a job this year. Well, like you said, the NFL, it's all about winning. What have you done for me lately? Not what have you done 20 years ago. How have you done recently? And Belichick has failed and failed some more and failed even more. bad draft after bad draft, not getting the offense right 1,000 times over. He's taken full control of the organization, basically. Every single draft choice was because of Bill Belichick, and the offense suffered because of that. They haven't had a true number one receiver since Randy Moss, and that was what? He got traded at week 4 of 2010? So it's been, 14 years since they had an actual wide receiver one? Now you can say Julian Edelman was, but then again, Brady made him great. We'll never know how Julian Edelman looked outside the Patriots because he never played for another team outside the Patriots. But we do know that Chris Hogan, not really amounted to much. Danny Amendola, not really a massive factor on a lot of the teams. We've seen a couple pieces come and go. Wes Welker, I would say, is an outlier amongst the Brady regime of receivers. However, it just looks like Belichick couldn't get the offense right. And I will admit Belichick should have, because he needed to say that to Arthur Blank and basically the front office of the Falcons saying, I will give up power, because otherwise he would have never gotten a job, because recent history says he can't get the offense right. But what I will say about this is when it comes to these three teams, each of these three coaches, I would say, is on the hot seat. Brian Daboll might not be, but I definitely think Nick Sirianni is, especially after the meltdown last year. I think Mike McCarthy is very much on the hot seat. And like I said, Brian Daboll, we'll have to wait and see. If they completely just fall apart, I think they're just going to abandon ship and get rid of basically everybody. But when it comes to this, I would say it looks like the Cowboys, according to the source, he's more inclined to go towards the Cowboys and coach them. That might be his best shot. Because if the Eagles are good, there's no way Sirianni's getting fired. If the Giants are okay and competent, let's say they draft a rookie quarterback, would the front office say, you know what, we'll keep you? Will the Mara family say, yeah, we'll keep you? Maybe.
Well, Daboll is a decent quarterbacks coach, right?
Right.
He got a lot out of Josh Allen.
Yeah.
Josh Allen played his best, actually, under Daboll. I think that the Giants will draft a quarterback. I do think that that it will be either McCarthy or Drake May. And depending on what the Patriots do, I think the Patriots... Now there's talk the Patriots will trade down. They may trade down to get more assets and realize that after the first two quarterbacks, probably there may not be a franchise quarterback there, and that they have worked out Drake May, they've worked out J.J. McCarthy. If they do pick a quarterback, it's one of those two, because I think Jaden Daniels goes number 2 and Caleb Williams is obviously number 1.
Right. I will say that Belichick is not completely out of the line. He's not just hiding in a hole somewhere. He got signed to Peyton Manning's Omaha Productions. They're going to do something there, I'm sure. He's also going to join Pat McAfee on his annual draft spectacular next week. So he's trying to stay in the public eye, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know how useful it'll be if McAfee starts asking him about wide receivers and what to look for them, because he hasn't hit on one at all.
Yeah.
Really at all.
I'll probably talk to him more about defensive players.
Yeah, what are you looking for in the defense? What makes a good defensive player? The problem is, early in the first round, there's a couple pieces. Jared Verse could go in the first round. I think Dallas Turner's going to go pretty high in the first round. You also got some cornerbacks, which Belichick has been somewhat hit or miss on, I would say.
I think he's done pretty well on the cornerbacks. Christian Gonzalez.
He got hurt, but he looked good. He did look very,
Marcus
very good.
Jones.
Too short.
Pretty good. But he does play the position well. But I thought he played the position well.
Bengals game 2022. He got mossed by Tyler Boyd consistently. He got cooked all game. I think Jonathan Jones had his moments, not all that great. Bringing back J.C. Jackson.
How about Kyle Duggar?
That's a hit.
Yeah.
That's a hit.
Yeah.
I don't think Miles Bryant was a hit. Yeah. Adrian Phillips was okay. But you also had a couple misses, but regardless of the fact, I think
McCourty.
That was what?
So he did pick him. Did pick him, right? He played for 15 years.
No, defense is Belichick's only specialty. Yeah. So if he's asking anything about offense, I think that's just a wasted question because he hasn't really hit on that.
I think it's interesting. Belichick is only interested in the NFC East. If that's true, I don't know who said this. Who said that? It's
Seth Wickersham, Jeremy Fowler, and Don Van Natta Jr.
Where did they hear it from?
Sources close to Belichick.
Well.
No. The same sources
Who would be the source that close to Belichick? Belichick doesn't talk to anybody.
Well, that's not true. You're saying that the confidant said that, he got screwed over by him, by Robert Kraft.
No, that's true. So I would say of the three teams, I think the Giants are probably the most likely. I see them having a terrible season this upcoming season. even if they do draft a rookie quarterback, it'll be tough for them because they don't have a whole lot on offense. They got rid of their very best player, Saquon Barkley. Got nothing for him. He went out in free agency. He's gone. And I think Brian Daboll's on the hot seat. He might even get fired during the season.
He might.
I think he goes crazy on the sidelines when things don't go his way. He wound up really getting angry at the rest of the coaches, and Wink Martindale resigned.
Yeah.
His DC, I'd say that's a big question mark. His defensive coordinator this year, how well he'll do.
Especially,
I do think their
Burns
defense
too.
is strong. They have a decent front line there. The defensive line looks very good for them. But aside from that, I don't see them having much strength. I think they're going to have a very hard time. I think that if they get off to a bad start and a losing streak, Daboll might be gone before the season's over. And the Eagles and the Cowboys, I'd say the Eagles are the least likely. I think Nick Sirianni resurrects himself this year.
Really? Okay.
And I think the Eagles play better. They have a good quarterback, and Jalen Hurts, right? He's a franchise quarterback. They have good receivers, A.J. Brown and Smith.
Yep.
I think their running back, they lost Swift, right? Swift, right?
Yeah.
And who did they pick up anybody for running back position? I'm not sure who they have. Maybe they're going to draft one. But so I think the Cowboys could be an opportunity since Jerry Jones and Bill Belichick are good friends. It all depends.
Oh, yeah. Wait, we're stupid. Saquon Barkley
Went to the Eagles. That's right.
Completely
so I think that the Cowboys are a possibility, but only if McCarthy falls on his face again. I think if he gets beat out, if he loses in the first round again, he's gone.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I do think that the regular season, the Cowboys will do okay. But as we've studied the Cowboys this year, they really didn't step up in free agency. They lost, other than they lost a bunch of people. They only signed one free agent, and they haven't been able to strike deals with their top three players, CeeDee Lamb, Dak Prescott, or Micah Parsons. So I don't know. There's a little bit of a question mark there. If they don't go deep into the playoffs, McCarthy's gone, and that Belichick has a chance there. If the Giants get off to a terrible start and Daboll gets canned, then he's got a chance there. So one out of the two, I think.
I really think it depends on what coaches are out there. If Ben Johnson decides he's done being the OC of the Lions, I think he'd be I think he would be a higher candidate than Belichick is. Because what we saw this year was
there's three teams.
I understand, but I don't think all three teams will lose their head coach. I think depending on the outcome, I think if Nick Sirianni and the Eagles do well this year, make the playoffs, maybe if they're a wild card team, let's say the Cowboys win the division, they're a wild card team, win their first play. I'm not saying necessarily make the NFC Championship game, but win one or two playoff games, make it somewhat interesting. I think Sirianni keeps his job. The Cowboys, we should expect what we've seen so far: 12-5, make the playoffs, lose in the first round. Whatever the first round is, whether it's the divisional or whether it's the wild card, I don't think they're going to be the number one seed in the NFC. However, whatever first playoff game they play in, they'll probably lose it, as history has told us. The Giants, I think it really depends on what they're expecting. If Daniel Jones goes out there and is a complete bum and they don't have a backup quarterback, yeah, Brian Daboll is going to get fired probably mid-season. If they draft a quarterback and John Mara and, Daboll talk it over with Joe Shane, then it could be interesting of what they do in the future. Will you keep Brian Daboll, who we saw with Josh Allen? He refined Josh Allen's game pretty well. We saw a little bit of a regression in Allen's game this year. I mean, I'm not saying massive, but we saw streaks of, yikes, this Bills team is not looking too good. But they bounced back late in the year. And, overall, Josh Allen had a pretty good season. It really depends on what the coaching market is. If Steve Wilkes is out there again, I think he'd be an okay candidate. He did a very, very good job on defense in the totality with the 49ers. Had a top-tier defense in the NFL. If Ben Johnson, the OC of the Lions, is available, I think right now, if Ben Johnson is the OC, he'll be the number one candidate next year for head coach.
Uh-huh. Well, there's generally 5 or 6 positions open every year.
Right. And not only that, let's just say, just hypothetical, let's say the Giants let's say the Cowboys and Eagles both fire their head coaches. The Giants keep Daboll. And let's say Ben Johnson's available and he goes to, let's say, the Philadelphia Eagles. The Cowboys and Robert Saleh, I think, also could get fired. The Jets. Belichick might be forced, based on circumstance alone, to either not get a job or go to some other team. Because if the Cowboys and or just the Cowboys lose their head coach, Mike McCarthy gets fired, and Ben Johnson's available, and they probably will sign Ben Johnson, or Kellen Moore, the OC, could become available. I'm not saying the OC for the Cowboys, but Kellen Moore, the offensive coordinator, if he becomes a head coach candidate, he could be, I think, a valuable asset to some team. We saw Brian Callahan become a head coach. Mike Vrabel's still available, or he's technically an advisor now, but he could be another head coaching candidate next year. I think there are going to be a couple head coaches out there that are in advisory roles. Pete Carroll still wants to coach again.
I don't know. I think he's a long shot to get another job.
Well, I think we could think the same way about Belichick. What we saw from him recently is failure in the draft, not being able to coach offense. The defense is good, but not good enough. The offensive line was in shambles.
Yeah,
He overspent in free agency to develop just a 10-7 record one year and fall apart year in year after.
Okay.
Also, the last thing that I'm going to say about this in the case of Belichick is he would need to bow down and say, I will only coach the team. You have a GM in place. If you want to keep your OC along with your DC. I'm going to come in and just coach the team.
Yeah.
If you have an OC hiring available, if you have an OC spot, I can give you my recommendation. Take it or leave it.
Yeah.
He can't go over there, change the entire thing.
Okay, well, my thought is 333 rings, 6 rings, 30 seasons of coaching, 16 AFC championships. 16 AFC East Division championships, 9 AFC championship wins. I think he gets a second chance.
Well, you mentioned all those great stats. 84 and 103 without the greatest player of all time. So when Belichick needs to make do with what he has, 84 and 103. Compared to with Tom Brady, 249 and 75.
Well,
that is a drastic change. And that's for primarily one player who made everything work to the best of his ability.
Well, he did manage to coach the greatest player of all time for 20 seasons. So I think he deserves another. He deserves a second chance. I think he'll get it. I think it will be in the. I agree with these guys. Maybe the NFC East. I think likely it's either the Giants or the Cowboys. I don't see the Eagles. I think Sirianni will resurrect himself and get into the playoffs and maybe deep into the playoffs. I'm not sure about the Super Bowl, but he does have some good weapons on offense there. They'll strengthen their defense, have a defensive coordinator that really is the defensive coordinator for the full year. I think that'll make a good difference for them.
I think it's a higher likelihood Belichick remains unemployed than he gets another head coaching job for the rest of his life.
Yeah,
I think there's a higher chance that he remains whatever he wants to do.
We disagree on this, Nate. We'll see what happens.
Hey, all I'm saying is we talked about this when he was still dealing with the Falcons, and I said probably likelihood is he won't get a job. And lo and behold, here we are. So we'll obviously have to wait and see. Season comes up. We'll see what 2024 that season looks like and what the outcome will be in the 2025 offseason. All right, let's continue with our next topic of today's show. So the Golden State Warriors ended up losing to the Sacramento Kings in the play-in game. It was an embarrassing game. The Warriors couldn't do anything right. Klay Thompson went 0 for 10. And so Mike Dunleavy, the president of basketball operations for the Golden State Warriors, had this to say in the post-game conference on the idea to bring Klay Thompson back, and he said, "We want Klay back first and foremost. I expressed that to him yesterday. I think our players have expressed that, our coaches, front office, ownership. Everybody wants Klay back. I think he's still a really good player. I think we have enough good players in our system. We have enough assets to acquire good players. We have the ability to keep getting better." I don't exactly know about that, but if the president of basketball operations for the Golden State Warriors thinks so, I'm going to take it at face value, at least for the time being. But I want to know, do you think, if in your own opinion, the Warriors should break up the big three of Steph, Klay, and Draymond, with Klay Thompson being an unrestricted free agency in this offseason?
I don't think they need to, actually. I think that they could bring Klay Thompson back on a reasonable deal. Probably makes sense. I mean, it's a crowd draw to have the big three back together for NBA championships among them. They are getting older. But the reason I say this is the young talent that the Warriors have that they can build around. They have Brandon Porzingis, He was the 19th pick in the draft. He averaged 9.2 points a game, 5.8 rebounds, 3.7 assists. He played very well. He's a very enthusiastic player, very excited about coming back and playing with the other three guys that make a difference for them now. Trace Jackson-Davis is a second-round pick. He's a really good rim defender. He can play the center position, maybe allow Draymond to move back over to the 4 position where he's more comfortable. And they liked him a lot. He had a decent season. Jonathan Kuminga, number 7 pick in the 2021 draft, 16.1 points a game, 4.8 boards, and 42%, almost 43% shooting percentage. He started out a little slow this year, but he really got it going. He looks like the real deal to be a strong player in that lineup, and was a starter for many of the games this season. So he looks good. So those 3 guys look really good in terms of building around and growing with the team. And you also have Moses Moody, who was great off the bench, played 20 minutes a game in 25 games, and is somebody who wants to play more, and but accepted his role and understood. And he's somebody that they could use more effectively as well. I think it comes down to whether the Warriors decide they want to keep the big 3 together by signing Klay to an extension. It's probably going to be expensive. You look at the benchmark there is Drew Holiday, who got 4 years, $135 million. That seems like an awful lot to play for Klay, who obviously seems to be over the hill a little bit, right? His defense isn't so great, and now he's become quite inconsistent on offense. But again, the nostalgia, the marketing, the history of these 3 players being together, Draymond, Klay, and Steph Curry, I think there's a fair chance they'll re-sign him. I think it's either him or Wiggins, and Wiggins has a less of a chance of being re-signed than Klay Thompson. I mean, he did not play all that well this year. They're talking about Kuminga perhaps being able to play the 3 position. They in the post-season conference with the general manager and Steve Kerr, they didn't mention Wiggins at all. They talked about Kuminga and maybe him playing the 3, Trace playing the 5, and Green moving over to 4 would give them a great defensive lineup, but they aren't quite ready for that now. They haven't had any talks with Klay Thompson for months. He's expected to draw interest from other teams, so probably he will test free agency, and maybe he'll decide to take a $135 million deal from somebody else, because I think that's a little steep for the Warriors, and they'd be expecting a home team discount, which generally they don't get when a player. Players in the professional sports generally go where the biggest bucks are. And I don't think that'll be any different for somebody like Klay Thompson. So I think it's up in the air. I think they'd like to have him back. They see that these guys are getting closer to the end of their career, but they see these young guys coming up. It's probably good experience for them to have players like Draymond, Klay, and Steph there to help them grow. And maybe they can mix and match and integrate and find some chemistry amongst all of those players together and get back into playoff contention.
I'm on the opposite side of this. I think it's time for Klay to go. And I know for a fact, just like Mike Dunleavy said, it's not something that necessarily the organization wants. It's not something that Steph wants, because Steph, even with Draymond having his off-the-court issues and sometimes on-the-court issues with punching out Jordan Poole in practice, he still wanted him there. I think it's time for the Warriors and for Klay Thompson to separate. This was one of Klay Thompson's worst years of his entire career. His lowest points per game since 2013. His lowest total points per game once he plays at least half the season. He came back in the 2021-2022 season back from that Achilles injury. He came back he played the last 32 games or around 32 games for the rest of that season. But this season was bad. He was the second worst defender on the Golden State Warriors when it comes to points per possession for the opposing team. I think that's pretty bad because what Klay Thompson, really did, his role, not only was he a spot-up shooter, he had the incredible, what was it? He had 35 points in some very, very small amount of time in a singular quarter. Maybe I forgot the exact total number, but he went out of his mind. Game 6, Klay, we always remember, against the Oklahoma City Thunder, he went off. He was incredible, but that time has passed. He would also be an incredible defender, which he no longer can do since his injury. I think it's time for them to go. Klay Thompson clearly is off the mark, and I think they're going to lose two valuable assets. One to free agency being Klay, the other which they're actually going to trade, and one you actually mentioned, which was Andrew Wiggins. I think Andrew Wiggins has served this purpose with the Warriors. He was a great player, valuable asset during their championship run where he averaged 16.5 points, and he was good enough then. This time around, he's had his lowest points per game in his entire career, playing 71 games of the season. Not great. Not great whatsoever. So I think they're going to lose two pieces here. And in order for them to grow, they got Chris Paul back. Complete mistake, and I think we expected that. Old versus new group. It worked okay, but in the totality of things, they weren't good enough. This team is like the COVID team where it was all about Steph Curry. Steph Curry or bust, and they had I think they had the worst record in the NBA. This team will forever be Steph Curry or bust if you have an aging group of players who cannot keep up at the same pace they could once. Klay Thompson, while he has his occasional, really good game where he gets, 20-something points, 15, whatever the case may be, when the moment's the biggest and you need Klay Thompson to step up, what have we seen recently? He completely chokes. 0 for 10.
They benched him at one point, right?
Correct. He had to come off the bench for the first time since his rookie season. Yeah. So I think, while, yes, having the big three there's history there, and the numbers speak for it. Since 2014 and 2015, the Warriors have been first in every stat that kind of matters. NBA championships, conference championships, regular season winning percentage, playoff winning percentage, points per game, and field goal percentage. They all were number one in. So they were an incredible team. You also had KD during that time. You had a 73-9 season. You had an incredible run. But all good things must come to an end. Klay Thompson is literally a negative factor for the Warriors. This season, his expected win-loss based on just, his performance and his, fill-in for the team, he basically, his expected wins for the Warriors was -11. Not great. Compared to someone who makes a legitimate impact, and this might be an unfair comparison, OG Anunoby brought the Knicks an expected win of 41. 41-plus wins. So OG's value for the Knicks is you're going to go 500 with him playing. Klay Thompson, you're going to lose 11 games with him there.
Yeah. Well, where would you think he'd go? I mean, he is going to be a free agent. There is interest in him.
He's not going to a contender. No contender is going to want him because he's not a consistent shooter. He's not a consistent defender anymore because if you go to the defensive rating, he was third. But according to this, the points per possession for the qualified players, he was second to last.
Mm-hmm. How about Wiggins?
Andrew Wiggins, he also was terrible. He contributed to -15 expected win-loss.
He's still pretty young, though.
Correct.
Wiggins,
no, he is young, but he also had the worst season of his career points per game-wise, 13.2. So he has fallen completely off. Now, he actually his value was getting wasted on the Minnesota Timberwolves. He was basically getting called a bust when he was in Minnesota. He comes to the Warriors, makes a very, very good impact, makes it to an all-star game, the first in his entire career. They go out and win a chip with him, contributing some great against the Celtics.
Yeah, he played very well.
He played incredibly well. And then, as the years went on, the next 2 years, it was like, okay, he's averaging 17 a game, and it's okay. And this season, I just think the entire Warriors, they look better. They could play better on the road. But in the totality of it, when it really mattered most, it was Steph or bust. And that's not a winning recipe. You brought in Chris Paul for point guard experience and to bolster your bench. Didn't work out so well. You got rid of Jordan Poole because really I think it needed to be either Draymond or Poole. You signed Draymond Green to an extension. You got rid of Poole. Poole played okay. He didn't have a great start with the Wizards, but you know what? He played okay.
But how about my comments on these 4 young players that are showing some promise and can grow together on the team and gain experience from playing with the big 3?
Well, I think it matters to what their roles are. Pods is very kind of like Klay Thompson, spot up shooter, can make a big difference there. But is Klay the spot up shooter he once was? If you tell me, yeah, you're going to learn under Klay, and this was 4 years ago, now we're talking. But now we're talking about Klay Thompson, who had to get benched, who was seen very, very frustrated about his own performances, was definitely down in his entire career. He needed to be sort of, mindset shifted when he got benched, was not happy about it. This Klay Thompson, we're not seeing a consistent Klay anymore. I think we kind of saw this even last year when it came down to it. Klay was not consistent, not performing his best. The playoffs were very, very ugly, had some very ugly moments. And this last game with the Sacramento Kings for the play-in game, that was kind of a culmination of this season. Now, just because the president of basketball operations is saying it, along with Draymond Green has advocated for him, Steve Kerr, I just think based on the circumstances and who wants it, he'll probably be back. He'll need to take a massive pay cut, I think. But is it the smart decision? No, it's not. He wants another opportunity to win. If it's with the Warriors, I don't know if the Warriors are built to win because they're too Steph reliant, as they have been.
Yeah. Well, they're going to be. I mean, he changed the game of basketball.
Correct.
Right? He changed the way it's played with the three-pointer. Right? Many teams went that route, and you see it today. The three-pointer is the way to go. There's many three-point shots in every game, and the percentages. If you can hit over 40%, you're an elite three-point shooter,
yeah.
And Steph Curry is pretty consistent with that. So they're going to continue to play around him, and I think rightfully so for at least a couple more years. He's one of the elite players ever in the NBA, and we saw him break the three-point
against the Knicks.
The three-point record against the Knicks at Madison Square Garden a couple of years ago, and that was pretty exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think moving forward, the Warriors, they're going to be a bad team. Steve Kerr and Steph Curry are now on the same exact 2-year deal. They're each going to probably ride off into the sunset together, and once those 2 years are up, the Warriors will go back to being bottom of the barrel in the NBA. They are not going to be competing for a number of years. The young roster is not as impressive as Oklahoma City's is. It's not as impressive as Minnesota's is, or even I think the Spurs right now with Wemby. Wemby's now getting calls for players to team up on the Spurs. You're not going to get Pods or Moses Moody or any one of these young guys getting those calls.
Mm-hmm. But they might be able to draft somebody.
They're
going to have a high draft pick.
You might be able to, but we've seen a couple players like James Wiseman not really fit the bill. If you're talking about 2 years down the future where Steve Kerr's not on the team anymore and maybe the culture needs a shift, then you might be able to have an opportunity to draft a couple of these players, let them develop for a couple of years, and maybe the system works better then under a new head coach. But with Steve Kerr there, with the big three potentially going to remain there, it's going to be very, very difficult for any young player to fit in and really gel that well, so much so that we're talking about the Warriors as a serious finals contender, because that's just not how it works. You need basically the core group of guys to blend together enough to be somewhat on the same level, and you can't have old starters to new bench to then having to blend them. It just doesn't work. We saw it last year. It worked a little bit better this year, but it didn't gel quite right. Next year, if you keep Klay or you trade assets to get more players like that, you could go that route. I think Andrew Wiggins should be traded. His value basically is diminishing every game he plays, and this season showed that. Like I said, fewest points per game his entire career. So you might not be able to get the amount of value you're hoping, and besides, contractually, the Warriors are spending a lot of money. So even if you want to sign Klay back, Klay's probably going to be looking to make money. He's 33 years old. I don't know how many years he's got left in him, but he's probably looking to make a decent amount of cash still.
He can, I think. They say there's interest in him. And Drew Holiday just set the benchmark, 4 years, $135 million. He's no youngster either. But he's older than Klay Thompson.
Correct. But Drew Holiday still fits his purpose perfectly. He's still an incredible defensive piece who, when he has to, can put up a number of points. But he still fits exactly what his role has been for a number of years.
Yeah.
Klay has regressed, and I think it's really.
I think Klay Thompson suffers from the injuries he's had too.
Absolutely, he's never been the same defender.
Been the same.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So Klay Thompson potentially moving on to greener pastures, or if the Warriors, based on the quotes that we're hearing from the front office and players, he might be back. But we'll have to see what exactly happens with the catch and shoot maestro. Coming up, Patriots de facto GM Elliott Wolf says that the Patriots could be trading back from the number 3 pick, and we're going to debate whether or not that's a good idea. Also, first round the NBA playoffs. The play-in games actually start in about a half hour. We're going to make our predictions on who wins those two, as well as make our first round predictions for the 2024 NBA playoffs. All of that coming up right after this.
Whether you're just discovering your voice or taking your show to the next level, you know what the world needs to hear. All you have to do is say it. With Spotify, set up your podcast. Your food podcast. Your mindfulness podcast. Your never thought you'd get this far podcast. And watch those sparks fly.
I put a picture of the comment.
Drop the episode anywhere people listen. And find out who they're cooking with. Where they're finding inner balance. And why they love your show. You're already a creator. Now you can create, connect, and get paid for your passion with one single free tool. Spotify for podcasters. Talk where the world listens.
Using Wi-Fi without NordVPN could mean sharing your private stuff with more people than you think. Stay safe on public Wi-Fi. Get NordVPN's special offer and encrypt your internet connection. NordVPN. Online security starts with a click.
Welcome back to the Harvey Hour. My name's Nathan Harvey. It's great to have you in on a Friday. As always, I'm joined alongside my dad, Stephen Harvey. Let's get into our next topic of today's show. So, Patriots de facto GM Elliott Wolf told reporters on Thursday that he's open to trade out of the number 3 pick by saying, quote, "We're open in the first round or any round." He was also asked about if he feels he has to pick a quarterback at number 3, and he also responded with no. So he could be going any route. We talked about our mock drafts. You had the Patriots drafting Marvin Harrison Jr. at the number 3 overall pick, while I had them drafting Jaden Daniels at number 3. However, we have talked about this previously about the Patriots, depending on the circumstances of the situation. If they need a quarterback, but their quarterback isn't there, should they trade back? But I want to know right now, based on our mock drafts, based on what's coming out, based on what Elliott Wolf, the de facto GM, is saying, what do you think the Patriots should do with the number 3 overall pick?
I'm not sure now. I've been watching this. I thought, hey, you get to number 3. It looks like Jaden Daniels is not going to be there. We know Caleb Williams is going number 1. Just take the best player in the draft. I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is the best player in the draft. So that's what I've got teed up right now. But I'm not confident about it at all because the Patriots do need a franchise quarterback. Do they think either J.J. McCarthy or Drake May is a franchise quarterback? I don't know. They worked out both of them. Drake May most recently. I think that earlier on, the Falcons tried to move up in the draft before they signed Cousins. They hit a brick wall. I think that had a lot to do with the Falcons taking Cousins instead. So at that point, it looked like the Patriots was staying at 3. Thought they were probably getting Jaden Daniels at that point because the Commanders looked to be interested in Drake May. Drake May's stock fell a little bit, and now it looks like Daniels is number 2. Do the Patriots want Drake May? I think that's a question. Or do they want J.J. McCarthy? I think J.J. McCarthy is a risk because he really didn't have the opportunity to show what he could do when you throw the ball 35 times a game. He only threw it about 17. Drake May, on the other hand, put up some big stats in 2022. 4,300 yards, 38 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, 698 yards rushing. He was with the AAC Player of the Year and Offensive Player of the Year. This past year, he dipped a little bit, but still pretty good. 3,600 yards passing, 24 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, 449 yards rushing, and 9 TDs. So, he's got talent. There's no doubt about it. The question is he a franchise quarterback? And that's what the Patriots got to have. And if they don't think there's a franchise quarterback in this draft, then to me, it's either Marvin Harrison or trade down.
I think that's the big thing, too, because recently, after Jaden Daniels supposedly liked some tweets that were sort of taking shots at the Commanders, Drake May and Jaden Daniels are now even in the odds standings to be the number 2 overall pick. And that's perfect for the Patriots. Because if Jaden Daniels is shadow sending those signals how I don't want to play in Washington, I think that leaves the Patriots with a wide open door to pick arguably the second best player in the draft, quarterback in the draft, who had a tremendous year. He was number one in deep passing, better than Drake May, who people are saying he has such a great arm, over Caleb Williams, who regressed. And J.J. McCarthy is the interesting one because Elliot Wolf, we talked about on the show, was, quote, pushing hard for J.J. McCarthy to be their draft pick. Well, like you mentioned, J.J. McCarthy has never had to been relied on with an offense because Michigan had a very run-based offense. I have the numbers here. In his entire career with Michigan, he played 40 games, 155 passing yards a game, 49 touchdowns, 11 picks. That's not terrible. Completion percentage of 67.9. You're like, okay, that's pretty good. And then you look a little bit deeper. He threw it 17.8 times a game. So he basically, if you don't have a balanced offense, you're screwed. Absolutely screwed. If what we're seeing, if we take away, the odds shift right now with Drake May and now becoming even with Daniels, and we say that the Commanders, based on what we heard previously, they're now sold on Jaden Daniels being their quarterback. That leaves you with Drake May as the next probably highest option. But here's the big thing. You have the Vikings that need a quarterback. You have the Broncos that need a quarterback. And I think, truthfully, just based on your team and who you got in the locker room, the Raiders also probably need a quarterback, although you do have Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell, who my guess is Antonio Pierce already said he wants to give O'Connell a shot to be the starter. I would trade back. 100% I would trade back, or I'd go Marvin Harrison. If we don't have Jaden Daniels, I would draft one of those guys.
I agree. I think if Jaden Daniels is there, that would be, I would say the Patriots will take him for sure.
They absolutely should.
If he's not, they're either going to they should, in my mind, take Harrison or trade down with the Vikings and get the 11th and the 23rd first round picks.
Because not only that,
that would be the best deal. To me, if Jaden Daniels is not there, the best I think for the Patriots would be to trade down to the 11th and the 23rd.
100%.
They could
That's
get,
what I have him. Or
they could get.
No, Daniels, but yeah.
They'll be either Penix or Bo Nix there.
Right.
They could take him, one of those two, and then they'll have the 23rd pick too to take another really good offensive. There'll be a good wide receiver at
Absolutely.
number 23. So they would get two pieces, and you don't know whether either Penix or Nix could be a franchise quarterback, but they'd be exciting at least for a year. I think
I would agree.
Yeah, and you would get an elite wide receiver too.
Right.
So you get two pieces for your offense. Where right now it needs a lot of help instead of one.
Correct. Because the Patriots last year were ranked 28 in receiver. They were ranked 29th in pass blocking. They were 31st in the quarterback rating. And the run blocking was a little bit better at 12th, even though their running game in its totality didn't seem very good because it really wasn't. You had Ramondre Stevenson dealing with injuries, Ezekiel Elliott, who was a little bit washed, who had an okay season, but is not the Zeke that we all know and love, especially Cowboys fans. That's why they get rid of him. They were ranked 18th. So the offense in its totality is garbage. Absolute garbage. Going into the season, Bill Barnwell of ESPN ranked them as the 26th best supporting cast for Mac Jones at the time. It really depends on what route you want to go. I think if you want to go quarterback and quarterback only, you better hope and pray Jaden Daniels is there. Because Drake May, you look at the scouting report, and I don't have it in front of me anymore, but the scouting report, you read some of the negatives there, it sounds like Mac Jones this year. Like questionable interceptions that leave you scratching your head. That's all we saw from Mac Jones this year. Makes inaccurate throws, locks in on his first read, does not move off it. That was one of Mac Jones's, key issues. Runs into dumb sacks. Mac Jones has done that. He's run forward, and instead of taking a sack in the Saints game, he threw a pick six. So that's my concern. If Drake May is available there, you read the scouting report, it's exactly this, or very, very close to Mac Jones, maybe with a slightly better deep ball. But if your offensive line sucks, you're not going to get any deep balls out unless immediately from the snap you start dropping back, 3-step drop, and try to just send it.
Well, the Patriots' offensive line will be better this year.
You'd hope so.
It couldn't be any worse.
I mean,
right? It was pretty bad last year.
You got 4 spots to be the worst. The Giants, according to this, had the worst pass block grade.
I say it couldn't be worse than the Patriots played.
They were terrible.
Right, they were terrible.
Zappy is not good. Mac is maybe worse.
Yeah.
You could.
They
I'll
re-signed
argue that.
Owenu.
They did. You have to put him at right tackle. Do not keep him at guard. City's so improved, but the way he started out was pitiful.
Yeah.
It was bad to watch that. Yeah. My only concern is you have Calvin Anderson, who just signed a reconstructed deal, 1 year, $2 million. You have him, or you have
Strange.
You have Strange, the guard. He's okay, not great. You have Connor McDermott as well. So you have Calvin Anderson or McDermott as your current left tackle.
Still have David Andrews.
He's coming back as well. But that left tackle could be an issue because everyone except for Penix, that's your blindside tackle. So you need to secure your left tackle. And in that case, maybe you take it the route of 11-23. You pray Bo Nix is there at 23. You draft a top-tier offensive lineman at 11. You can get Talise Fuaga, who is a great run blocker as well, which could help Ramondre and which could also help Antonio Gibson, the backup running back as well, to have a more balanced offense. You could take it that route, or you could take it quarterback at 11, go, I don't know, A.D. Mitchell, Brian Thomas Jr., Xavier Worthy, McConkey, I believe his name. Take Lad McConkey. You could take any one of these guys at number 23. But this draft is filled with receiver talent. Early on, it's filled with tremendous offensive line talent and quarterback talent. It's not a very heavy defensive draft. You have a couple nice pieces early, but if we're talking just about depth,
most of the draft picks, the draft prognosticators, have a lot of offensive linemen going,
absolutely.
and because so many teams have terrible offensive lines, it's amazing how weak the offensive lines were in 2023.
Yeah,
many teams
had
very poor offensive lines. The Jets, the Steelers, the Patriots, they were all weak.
Well, here's the thing. Let's go with the bottom 10. Giants, Steelers, Jets, Patriots, Seahawks, Panthers, Saints, 49ers, who were not that bad or not that good. Titans, who technically, according to PFF, had the worst pass blocking efficiency rating, and the Bears. So we're talking about a lot of teams who were very, very poor, below average to just downright horrible, atrocious. The Giants had a poor offensive line. The Jets, injuries and just age got them. The Tennessee Titans had a horrible offensive line. The Patriots, on paper, Trent Brown's okay, and he actually had one of his best years pass blocking wise. You had Michael Wenu, who was right guard, moved to right tackle. That was good. You drafted Cole Strange last year, I believe.
He got hurt. He was hurt all year.
David Andrews, age not the same. He had one of his worst years. And then you had a weird situation with the right guard, City. So, who was the other guy? I forgot. He was terrible. Antonio Maffei.
Connor McDermott.
Connor McDermott, he was the left tackle, came in. Maffei was terrible. He was the lowest grade offensive lineman, I believe, in the entire NFL last season. But it was just bad. In its totality, the Patriots' offensive line was terrible. It depends on what you want to go. If you think quarterback can solve most of your problems and you believe you could bolster the offensive line just with a lot of coaching, go quarterback. But you better make sure at number 3, you must love the quarterback. You don't love it.
I don't think there's one there they love unless it's Jaden Daniels right now.
Well,
so
if
to me,
you want to read to Elliot Wolf, he's saying go out and get J.J. McCarthy. And that's what's weird.
But now I hear he's saying
now
he's thinking about trading down.
Do you feel QB has to be the pick? No, we're open to in the first round or any round. I think we'd be comfortable with picking. This is the question. If the answer is picking one of the top 4 QBs at number 3, he goes, quote, I think we'd be comfortable with it. So it could be a QB. It might not be a QB. They could trade back, but we don't know. We're open at any round. So there, smoke screen. I can't tell what's behind that smoke screen.
Maybe that's their strategy. Maybe that's their strategy. They don't want anyone to know what they're going to do, and then they're going to wait at the first 2 picks to be made, and then they're going to make their decision whether they trade down, they take Marvin Harrison Jr., Jaden Daniels is there, and they take him, or they go take those 2 Vikings first-round picks, which look very nice. So number 11 and number 23, boy. You're going to get 2 really good players,
especially in this draft. There is talent all over the place.
Yeah.
So it depends on what the Patriots want to do. I think Gerard Mayo is actually in a good spot because of the fact that Robert Kraft seemed to know that he would be the heir apparent to Bill Belichick the year before Belichick got fired because he was promoted and extended to a long-term deal. I think his job is safe for the next at least 3 seasons. So if they want to go with Marvin Harrison and then go Jacoby Brissett as the starting quarterback, that could be something. But the plan we heard was get rid of Mac Jones, sign a veteran, draft a quarterback. And if it's Drake May, I don't know. If it's J.J. McCarthy, I'm mortified because the offense would need to rely on him. And in college, the offense never relied on him whatsoever. 170 yards in the national championship.
No, that's the
game.
question mark about him, whether he's really that good, because no one's really seen him under pressure to try to be the guy that came back, brought him back in the fourth quarter and led a game-winning drive with a lot of passing.
Right.
That's not him. He's a game manager for sure.
I think J.J. McCarthy would fit beautifully with the Minnesota Vikings. Good offensive line. Aaron Jones is your running back. You have T.J. Hawkinson, Jordan Addison, and Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, well, I think the Vikings
Kevin
know
O'Connell
that they're
as
going to
well.
have to trade up to get him.
Absolutely.
Because if he doesn't go to the Patriots at 3, he probably goes to the Giants at 6.
I don't know. Then that's the thing. You heard Joe Shane talk about the fact that they have so many holes. They might not draft a quarterback. But then again, you also hear them. They had a private workout with McCarthy. There's a whole thing going on.
They met with him 4 times, right?
It's crazy exactly what's going on there. And the draft is under a week away now. We're going to make our mock drafts on Tuesday, the final ones. We're rounding out the end of the first round. So I'm very, very excited to see. And the benefit of having the draft on Thursday for this show is we get to analyze what happened on Friday. So that should be fun next Friday as well. But let's wrap up our show with something that we love to do on this show, and that's make predictions. So, first off, let's begin with the play-in tournament. So let's bring up the bracket here. We actually have the same Eastern Conference and Western Conference winner. We're going to go back and forth when it comes to this, so we'll each go East, number 1, and go through the entire bracket as the bracket progresses. So let's begin with the number 1 seed. I'll go first. The Celtics against the Heat or the Bulls. I have the Bulls winning tonight, especially with Jimmy Butler and his MCL injury. When he's out indefinitely, it's not going to be good for the Heat. I do not trust the Heat to win this game, and regardless, I don't think it matters. I still think the Celtics win, but I do think the Celtics win in 5 only. I don't think this is a sweep. I think they will lose one game, maybe game 1, because they're a little bit overconfident, which is what we've seen in recent memory with the Celtics doubting their opponents. We saw last year what that looked like, and also them finishing the season on a relatively low note. But according to reports, they're practicing much longer and harder. So will they have the same intensity? I'm not entirely sure. I do think the Bulls get at least one game against the Boston Celtics, but I have them winning the series in 5. What do you got for Celtics, Heat, or Bulls?
I agree with you. I have the Celtics in 5. I have the Bulls playing them. And I do think the Bulls will win one game. I don't think it's the first game. I think it's a game they'll probably win one at home. But I do see the Celtics getting through this round. Not too difficult for them. They look at the talent they have. I mean, look at the season they had till they kind of packed it in after they had 62 wins. I think they just got too much for the Bulls. That's for sure.
Absolutely. Let's go into the 2-7 game. Now, Knicks against 76ers, I'll go first. I got the Knicks winning in 6 games. I think this is going to be fascinating. Joel Embiid, not 100% here. And also, the Knicks are 3-1 against the 76ers this season. Embiid played in only one of those games. However, it was arguably the worst loss for the 76ers. They lost 128-92, and that's with Maxey and Embiid combining for 57 points. This Knicks team is on an entirely different level this year. I do not think they're overrated like some people are saying out there. Some of the media are saying. The Knicks are 20-3 with OG Anunoby playing. He, like I said in previous shows, he contributes to 41 expected wins. So when OG's playing, you're expecting to go at least 500, which is incredibly impressive. And also, some people are saying, oh, but what about Julius Randle out? They actually play better with Julius Randle out. And in the playoffs, you don't have to rely on Julius Randle to make big-time plays, which he is prone to not doing in the playoffs where he comes up small. I have the Knicks winning in 6. I think, while, yes, 6 is only one away from 7, it's a do-or-die game for the Knicks or the Sixers in Game 7. I think this series will look very, very dominant for the Knicks. I do not think it's going to be as close as the series projects, just like how, I forgot what game it was. It was a 118-109 win. I'm forgetting what team was, but the score wasn't. It was the Celtics. Oh, what game was it? I forget what game it was, but the score did not equal what the game appeared to be. So was it the Knicks Celtics? Was it? I'm forgetting what game it was, but the score did not equal what the game actually was. So I'll take the Knicks in 6.
Okay, I'm taking the Knicks as well, but in 7. I think that the 76ers with Embiid back, the way Tyrese Maxey has played this season, and with Nick Nurse as their head coach, who took the Raptors to an NBA championship, I think that they're going to make it competitive. I think it's unfortunate that Embiid didn't get back sooner because there's rust and there's a chemistry issue probably he's been gone so long. And it's unfortunate he didn't have 10, 12 games to get back in a groove with the rest of the players. And I think that's the reason the Knicks sneak by. I think that the Knicks have a good team, a better team this year than they did last year, but it's still going to be very heavily on Brunson. And I think that in this series they'll win, and maybe the next one too, but I think they run out of gas.
All right, let's go with the next matchup, the 3-6 game between the Bucks and the Pacers. I'll go first with this one. I got the Pacers actually technically upsetting the Milwaukee Bucks in 7 games. The Pacers, the best offense in the NBA. Number 1 in points per game. They're basically, and this is why, Milwaukee is 2-6 in the month of April. They have been reeling for a number of games now. You went into the All-Star game 3-7 record. You have a 17-19 record with Doc Rivers as your head coach. Milwaukee is 21st in points allowed. They don't play any real defense, and against a team that is number 1 in points per game, you're going to need to keep up with the Indiana Pacers. They're 4-1 against the Milwaukee Bucks. The Pacers are, including the in-season tournament. You take that out, they're 3-1. So you need to keep up with them. And if you can't, the Pacers will outscore you, outshoot you, outperform you. And yeah, I understand the Pacers don't play defense either, but the Bucks, on the other hand, don't have the same offensive prowess. I know on paper they should with the amount of talent they have, but based on the season, they don't. Tyrese Halliburton, arguably the best true point guard in the game. Double-digit assists per game, 20 points a game. He's an incredible point guard. Obi Toppin had a tremendous year this year as well. So I think the Pacers will just outscore and overpower the Bucks, where they have no shot at really maintaining a lead with them. I think this game goes back and forth, but I just think the Pacers come out and they dominate. I think the only reason it goes to 7 is that I think Dame could go off in one game. I think Giannis will have a great offensive performance in another game. Brook Lopez, for all we know, might go off. Bobby Portis has known to go off occasionally, but I do think the Pacers go out with the upset and win in 7 games.
I'm disagreeing with you on this one. I got the Bucks again in 7 games. I think the Bucks they got a lot of talent. I think that Doc Rivers might have been a mistake to pick his head coach, and he hasn't really brought them to the caliber of a team that I think they are. But having Giannis and having Lillard on the same team, and Lillard now in the playoffs. It's been a while since he's been in the playoffs. I think he's going to be hungry. They have Brook Lopez, and they still have their small forward
Chris Middleton.
Chris Middleton. They have some decent bench players. I think they're deep, and I think they'll rise to the occasion. They're a team that this team together has won an NBA championship once already, not so long ago. And they know how to play in the playoffs. The Pacers, on the other hand, I don't think they made the playoffs last year, right? So this is new territory for them. I think the Bucks get it done in 7.
I will say this, it'll be very, very difficult because Giannis may miss the beginning of this series, and that's where I think the Pacers will actually take over. Now, he'll be there later, and I think when he does get back, if he does get back, depending on whether or not the injury, I don't know if he has a setback, God forbid he does, and I think Giannis makes the NBA significantly better, especially come playoff time. But I think if Giannis somehow does not maintain, the level that he was pre-injury and comes back and doesn't, perform very well, I'm not saying
no, that's
sweep,
possible.
But we're talking about 5-6 games, man. We might pull a Bulls. Also, just a quick update on the East: Miami up 25-13. So not looking good for us right now with our picks. But let's conclude with the 4-5 matchup between the Cavaliers and the Magic. For me, I got the Magic in 7 games. Orlando is 22-12 since February. They split the regular series 2-2 apiece. But Cleveland, the past 2 months have not really done them any good. 10-14 in the last 2 months. The way the Magic are going to win is just strictly be more physical. That's all you got to do. Defensively, they are 5th in the NBA in steals. That's massive. Also, they're number 1 in free throw attempts. get the Cavaliers into foul trouble early. They have to play more conservative. Paolo Banchero, Franz Wagner, Jalen Suggs, as well as Cole Anthony step up. I say the Magic get it done in 7 games and a slight upset, but they do get the upset over the Cleveland Cavaliers and send them packing in round 1. Your 4-5 match.
I disagree with you on this one too. I've got the Cavaliers in 7. I think this series is going to have a lot of defense. These are both very good defensive teams. I think the Cavs win with the X factor, Donovan Mitchell.
D. Mitchell's the guy to go to.
Yep.
Very, very interesting. So those are our Eastern Conference predictions. The only ones we disagree on when it comes to just who's winning are the you have the 3-seed Bucks, I have the 6-seed Pacers, I have the 5-seed Magic, you have the 4-seed Cavaliers. So those are Eastern Conference predictions. Let's go to the West now, where this is interesting. So let's start with the play-in game, which actually begins, I believe, at 10 p.m. Eastern time, which is the Kings and the Pelicans. I believe we both have the Kings winning that series. So the Pelicans, and especially with Zion Williamson out for this game, I think the Kings should be able to take care of business and secure that 8 spot against the Thunder. But let's jump right into it. I don't think it really matters because I have the Thunder winning in 6 games. Oklahoma City, one of the youngest teams in the NBA right now, and they are playing at a tremendous level. Chet Holmgren, a tremendous quote-unquote rookie. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, they have one of the best starting 5s in the NBA. Incredible power all over. The young team, the youth, the athleticism is incredible indeed. They're 3-1 in the regular season against the Sacramento Kings, including the in-season tournament. Otherwise, they're 2-1 if you don't want to include that. But 3-1 against the Kings. I'll have them winning in 6 games. The young team moves on to round number 2. What about you?
I agree with you 100%. I have the Kings winning the play-in, and I have the Thunder winning in 6. And I like Chet Holmgren as a rookie. They've got some nice talent on the Thunder, and they're the number 1 seed. So they didn't get there by playing poorly, and considering the Nuggets are in the West and the Thunder being the number 1 seed, I think that it shows a lot, and I think they'll take care of business in the first round.
All right, let's go to the 2-7 matchup, the Nuggets and the Lakers. We've seen this matchup before when it mattered most last year. But this time, it's a repeat, kind of, because it won't be a sweep, but it will be in 5. I got the Nuggets in 5 games. There's no true matchup against Jokic that works effectively. Anthony Davis is interesting. Could he cause some problems? Yeah. But overall, the Nuggets, there's really no stopping them. They are just a dynamic team. Jokic is having an MVP season. I will disagree, not that Jokic is MVP, but the odds are so much farther away than I thought they would be. Last time I checked, the odds for MVP is Jokic minus 7,000 to Luka Doncic plus 3,000. I think it should be a much, much closer race. Luka's having a tremendous season, so I think it's a little bit unfair when it comes to the odds makers, but Jokic will probably be, based on the odds, MVP. But there is no true matchup against Jokic. You can't really do anything. He kind of has a Dirk Nowitzki step back, a one-leg kickback. I don't understand how he makes some of those threes he does. But Jamal Murray, when it comes to playoff time, he'll show up as well. You have a couple pieces. Michael Porter Jr. is having a pretty good season. Aaron Gordon as well has his moments. There is no true matchup. The Lakers are old. LeBron James, while he's having a good year, not good enough. Anthony Davis has played the most amount of games he has, I believe, in his career this season. But injuries will come. I believe Anthony Davis recently either injured something, tweaked something. Something's wrong with AD. So my guess is this is time to get hurt. Unfortunately, I do have the Nuggets winning, though, in 5 games. You have?
I have the Nuggets, but in 6 games, and it's only because I'm giving some respect to LeBron as one of the greatest players in NBA history that they get to 6 games. You're probably right at 5.
Yeah, I'm right.
I do think you're right, but I'm doing that just because the respect I have for LeBron.
That's fair.
I think the Nuggets, they won the NBA championship last year. How they managed to be the 2 seed this time, I'm not so sure. I think Jokic is the best player in the NBA, and they show what they could do against the Celtics, are probably the other best team in the NBA, beating them both at home and away.
Yeah.
So I got the Nuggets at 6.
The only team to sweep the Celtics, by the way, the Denver Nuggets. They are a dangerous team to look out for if and when they get hot in the playoffs.
Yeah.
All right, let's go for the 3-6 matchup. We got the Timberwolves team, very, very impressive Minnesota Timberwolves against the Phoenix Suns. Take out your brooms, ladies and gentlemen. I got a sweep going on. I got the Phoenix Suns winning in 4 games. The only sweep, spoiler, the only sweep I have in this entire playoff series so far in round 1. The Suns, while having a pretty poor March, they came back with a 6-2 month of April with wins over New Orleans, Cleveland, Minnesota twice, the Clippers, and Sacramento. In the entire season, the Phoenix Suns are 3-0 against the Minnesota Timberwolves, regardless of the seeding, regardless of the placement. The Suns were able to get it done against the Minnesota Timberwolves. I just don't think the Timberwolves, when it comes to playoff time, they'll perform very, very well. And Edwards, tremendous player. Cat, pretty good player. Rudy Gobert, defensive player of the year candidate a lot of the time. He's a pretty good defender. Overall game, questionable, but overall defense, tremendous. Had him on my fantasy team. Did me pretty well. So, but when it all said and done, who do you got? You got Bradley Beal, D Book. You also have Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant, mid-range shot, incredible. The only way you could stop him is play physical. Does it really matter? No, because guess what? The Phoenix Suns are 3-0 against the Timberwolves. I think Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, and KD, this is the Nets 2.0, except this time they actually had time to gel with one another and get things going, and we saw that in the month of April when you go 6-2. So I got the Suns. This is the only sweep in the first round I have. The Suns in 4 games sweep the young but very impressive and ultimately disappointing Minnesota Timberwolves. That's what I have in the first round. How about you? Rather this one?
Timberwolves in 6.
Wow.
Yeah. And, I'm surprised the Suns, with supposedly all that talent, are the 6th seed. How'd that happen? I mean, they're inconsistent play. They got KD. He's still one of the best players in the league. But what happened to the supporting cast around him, who are very good too? Booker, right, and Beal. Well, they came up kind of small for the Suns to wind up in the 6th seed. With the amount of money and the talent that they supposedly have, I just, maybe they don't gel right. I don't know. But the Timberwolves are hungry. They got those young players. They have Rudy Gobert, who is going to be the defensive player of the year. So I like the Timberwolves in 6.
And finally, to wrap up the first round of the Western Conference playoffs, we have the Los Angeles Clippers against the Dallas Mavericks. For my pick, I have the Dallas Mavericks going in 7 games. Now, it doesn't look good when the Mavericks had a lot of trouble against the Clippers in the regular season, and that's kind of what, I'm kind of being contradictory because some of my points are, well, they're 2-1 against this team or 3-1 against that team. However, this is different. I would say when they started off, the defense of the Mavericks was kind of embarrassing, but it improved slowly over time, especially with the addition of the offensive skill set from Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic actually blending pretty well. Luka's having an MVP season. I think that's undoubtedly the case. Basically 34 points a game, shooting 38% from 3 and 57% effective field goal percentage. But if you're talking about strictly from 2, it's also 57.3%. So Luka's having a tremendous year. Kyrie averaging 25 points a game. PJ Washington also having a very, very effective season, nearly 12 points a game as well. Kyrie shooting 41% from 3. 41%. Now, if only he could have been this way with the Nets and stayed on the court instead of complaining about everything, then maybe the Nets could have also been this. Instead, they were the worst experiment, arguably, in NBA history. But I think with the combination of Luka and Kyrie, defense stepping up, I think this could be an interesting series, and especially with Kawhi Leonard, game time decision for Game 1 with a pretty decent knee injury, I would say that's actually where the Mavericks take advantage, steal at least one game away at home from the Los Angeles Clippers, take advantage of that, and bring that momentum in throughout the rest of the series, and I got the Mavericks upsetting the Los Angeles Clippers in 7 games. Your round 1 conclusion 4-5 matchup goes to?
I think it will be close, but I have the Clippers in 7. I love Luka Doncic. I think he's a great player. I hope he has a very good chance to win the MVP, but I think Jokic might beat him out on that. I hate Kyrie Irving. I'm sorry. I can't stand that guy. And I think he's, I don't know. I just don't think he's good for a team. He screws up the chemistry. The Mavericks are the 5 seed, so they played pretty decent this year, much better than last year when they didn't even make the playoffs. But the Clippers have Leonard, they have Paul George, and they have Westbrook, and they have
James Harden
as well. So they've got 4 legit players there, really good players. I think they find a way to win this. And 7, you might be right with Leonard hurt in Game 1 that the Mavericks steal that on the Clippers home court. If that happens, then. Maybe you're right. Maybe the Mavericks win it, but we'll see.
Once again, we have changes at the 3-6 and the 4-5.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we agree throughout the entire thing. So there we go. Those are our round one predictions and another update for the Heat game, which I'll check right now. We have the Heat winning 34-17.
Jay.
Not looking good. Who we got? Hami Hawkins is having a good game as well. Tyler Hero, not great from 3, but he has 6 points throughout the first. It just ended the first. So not looking good for the Bulls. We'll see if they can step it up in the second quarter and throughout the rest of the game. But I don't think it really matters when it comes to our picks because regardless, for instance, the Celtics swept the Heat. If the Heat win tonight's game, with Jimmy Butler having an MCL injury, does that change any of your picks?
No, the Celtics will still beat them, but it will be harder, I think, because the Heat have a culture. They got a winning culture. They have a playoff winning culture. They're basically in the same position they were last year, except having Jimmy Butler hurt. I can see some of the other players being hurt, and last year, who did they had? Tyler Hero was out for the whole playoffs last year, and that's why I thought they wouldn't make it to the finals. And I didn't think they'd make it through the first round, actually, and they did because they got a great coach and they got a winning culture. So I think they would make it tougher on the Celtics than the Bulls would. So we'll see what happens. It looks like the Heat may be starting their run again.
Could be. And how about this? If the let's say the Pelicans win, does that change anything about the Thunder-Pelicans series since we have the Kings winning?
I don't think so. I mean, the Thunder look great. I mean, they've got they got that rookie who's coming in here, played very well this year. They're an exciting team. They're hungry. I don't think the Pelicans will knock them off.
They the Thunder were 2-1 in their regular season series against the Pelicans. So there we go. That wraps up today's show of the Harvey Hour. We got it going on Tuesday. We got Mock Draft 3.0 where we wrap up the first round. And, of course, next Friday, we'll recap the draft and who we think had the best draft. So it's going to be fun, although Friday is, day 2. But at least we'll have day 1's picks, where the first round, we'll analyze first-round picks, see who had the better first-round draft. But for this episode of the Harvey Hour, my name is Nathan Harvey. That's my dad, Stephen Harvey. We have been the host of the Harvey Hour. Catch us Tuesday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern, right here on YouTube.
Night, Grandpa.
Using Wi-Fi without NordVPN could mean sharing your private stuff with more people than you think. Stay safe on public Wi-Fi. Get NordVPN's special offer and encrypt your internet connection. NordVPN. Online security starts with a click.